The city was alive with neon lights and restless footsteps. People rushed past each other, their eyes glued to glowing screens, their ears covered with headphones, their hearts somewhere far away. But in the corner of a busy street, almost hidden, in the shadows, sat a man the world had stopped noticing. His clothes were torn, his beard unkempt, and his hands trembled slightly as he held a cardboard sign that simply read, "Will work for food." His name was David Carter. Once upon a time, David had been a dreamer. He wasn't born into wealth, but he was born with something rare, a voice that could move souls. As a young man, he had worked at a small local radio station. His colleagues used to say, "Man, you've got the voice of an angel. When you speak, it feels like the world slows down just to listen." And for a while, David believed that voice would carry him somewhere far. He imagined himself on national radio, maybe even television, inspiring millions. But dreams are fragile, and the world often tests them with fire. One day, the station shut down. The economy shifted, jobs disappeared, and bills began stacking on his table like an enemy he couldn't defeat. He tried holding on, but with every passing month, things only got worse. His wife, exhausted from the struggle, left him and took their son with her. And as loneliness crept in, so did alcohol. What started as comfort became a cage, and slowly, piece by piece, David lost everything: his family, his home, his dignity. Now, sitting on the sidewalk, invisible to the crowds, he whispered to himself in a voice cracked by pain, "Just one chance. That's all I need." The winter morning was biting cold when it happened. A young woman, her phone in her hand, was walking past when she noticed David's sign. Something about him made her stop. Maybe it was the sadness in his eyes. Maybe it was destiny. She bent down and asked softly, "Hey, what's your story?" David lowered his head, ashamed. "Just another man down on his luck," he muttered. But even in those few words, there was something in his tone. Deep, powerful, magnetic, that made the woman pause. Curious, she handed him $1 and said, "Would you say something for my camera? Pretend you're on the radio again." David looked at her confused, then hesitated. It had been years since he had used his gift. But slowly, he straightened his back, cleared his throat, and then, like thunder breaking through clouds, his golden voice returned. "Good morning, ladies and gentlemen," he said, his tone smooth and commanding. "You are listening to the voice of second chances, the voice that refuses to give up, no matter how many times life tries to silence it." The young woman froze. Her eyes widened. The city around them seemed to vanish for a moment. Even people walking by slowed down, turning their heads. There was something about his voice that stopped time itself. She quickly uploaded the video, online, not knowing that within hours it would explode across the internet. By morning, David Carter wasn't invisible anymore. He was everywhere. "The Beggar with the Golden Voice." That was the title flashing across news channels. Millions watched his video, and millions more shared it. Phone calls began to pour in. Job offers, interviews, TV appearances. The man who once begged for $1 was now the man everyone wanted to hear. But fame wasn't the real victory. The real victory was what David realized deep inside, that his gift had never left him. Life had broken him, yes. Life had buried him under layers of pain and failure, but his voice was always there, waiting for him to believe again. When he stood on a stage weeks later, dressed in a clean suit, facing an audience of thousands, his heart raced. He looked out at the faces staring back at him, faces filled with hope, curiosity, and tears. Taking a deep breath, he spoke into the microphone, his voice filling the hall. "My friends," he began, "I stand before you not as a star, not as a celebrity, but as a man who once lost everything. I was homeless. I was forgotten. People walked past me like I was invisible. And I believed for a long time that my story was over. He paused, scanning the crowd. But then something happened. The world heard my voice again. And it gave me a second chance. The silence in the room was heavy, almost sacred. Every eye was locked on him. Maybe some of you here feel invisible. Maybe you've been knocked down so many times that you don't think you can get back up. Maybe life has told you that you're finished. But I'm here to tell you, you are not done. Inside you, there is something golden. Maybe it's your kindness. Maybe it's your creativity. Maybe it's your determination. But it's there, waiting. And when the world finally hears it, it can change everything. His words struck like lightning. People nodded, some cried, some whispered to each other. That's me. He's talking about me. David's voice grew, stronger. I want you to remember this. Your gift, your dream, your purpose, it never leaves you. No matter how broken you feel, it waits for you to believe again. Don't give up. Don't bury it. Because the day you let the world hear your golden voice, that day, your life will change forever. The audience erupted in applause, but David wasn't finished. He leaned closer to the microphone and said softly, "And if a broken man on the street corner can rise again, then so can you." The applause grew louder, echoing through the hall. People stood on their feet, clapping, cheering, crying. The camera pulled back, showing David on stage, standing tall under the bright lights. And for a brief moment, the shot fades back to where he once was, sitting alone in the cold with a cardboard sign. The contrast was breathtaking. From the shadows of despair to the spotlight of hope, David Carter's journey wasn't just his story. It became a mirror for millions who needed to hear one truth, that no matter how many times life knocks you down, you are never finished until you stop trying. And as the screen fades to black, his voice echoes one last time. What's your golden voice?